And so, we return. Not from battle, nor from conquest, but from a slow and steady walk through the quieter corners of Norse life. You've seen the world through the eyes of a Viking farmer, his hands chapped by frost, his life measured in harvests and hardship. You've sailed beside Leif Erikson, not toward fame or fortune, but toward curiosity and the edge of the known world. You've stood beside a buried ship, still as a memory, and wondered about the women who were honored with its final voyage. And you've sat beneath timbered rafters, warmed by fire and mead. As stories pass from mouth to ear, binding a community together. These were not the Vikings of legend, not axe-wielding caricatures or roaring pillagers of distant shores. These were people who lived with the seasons, who worked, wandered, hoped, and endured. Their lives were cold, often short, but full of texture, full of rhythm, full of meaning, in ways both familiar and forgotten. Tonight, as you lie still in your own bed, safe from wind and hunger, you may find comfort in the distance between then and now, but also in the strange closeness of it. In the quiet work of daily life, in the longing for warmth and safety, in the stories passed from one to another, and the silence that follows. Let your mind drift now, like a long ship upon still water, carried gently by time toward rest, toward sleep, toward peace. Good night. Let us now step away from graves and toil, and into the flickering warmth of a Viking chieftain's hall. Imagine yourself standing before a long, timbered structure. Thick beams rise overhead, and smoke curls from the roof hole into the winter air. The wooden door creaks open, and you are bathed in the glow of firelight and the low hum of voices. This is the Great Hall, the heart of a Norse community. Inside, it is warmer than you expect. The air is heavy with the scent of roasted meat, peat smoke, and damp wool. Long tables stretch down the length of the hall, set with carved drinking horns, rough pottery, and slabs of dried fish and mutton. Men and women sit shoulder to shoulder, farmers, warriors, travelers, all drawn together for food, drink, and news. At the far end, elevated on a small platform, sits the chieftain. His presence anchors the space. He is not a king in the modern sense, but his authority is absolute here. He governs with a mix of charisma, wealth, kinship ties, and the favor of the gods. Feasts in the Norse world were not merely for nourishment. They were rituals of order, displays of status, stages for alliances, conflicts, performances. A skald or poet rises to speak. His voice is calm, but practiced. He recites verses, some ancient, some new, praising the chieftain's ancestors, recounting distant battles, or weaving metaphors of wolves and winter into tales of loyalty and vengeance. The words are poetic, rhythmic, and often cryptic. Everyone listens. Even the youngest child falls quiet. In this world, memory is preserved in rhyme. History lives in the mouth. As the night deepens, the chieftain might stand to speak. He does not shout. He does not boast. He simply tells a story, perhaps of his youth, perhaps of a journey to Iceland, or a skirmish with raiders long ago. Every story serves a purpose, a reminder of lineage, a claim to land, a warning to rivals. In the corner, servants move about, ladling stew, refilling horns with mead, a honey-based drink, thick and sweet. Outside, the snow gathers. Inside, the walls glow gold. But even in this warmth, power structures are carefully observed. Where you sit matters. Who you speak to matters. You may be offered a place near the hearth or relegated to the edge of the hall, where the smoke gathers low. Occasionally, a local assembly is called. Disputes are aired. Oaths renewed. Witnesses named. Justice is communal, and memory is law. The chieftain, though central, is bound by these customs. He must be generous. He must maintain the loyalty of his followers through gifts, protection, and hospitality. A stingy leader does not remain in power long. His hall may be splendid, but it is always fragile. And when the feast ends, the hall falls quiet. The torches are extinguished. The fire dims 2 coals. People curl up on benches or furs, wrapped in cloaks, lulled by the day's drink and the safety of shared walls. The wind howls outside, but in here, there is warmth and a sense of belonging. The rhythm of life continues, governed not by clocks, but by seasons, stories, and slow tradition. And as sleep settles over the hall, the old timbers creak softly, like the hull of a ship at rest. Let us turn now, not to the sea, but to the soil. Imagine a quiet hill in southern Norway. It is the early 20th century. The year is 1904. A farmer, digging through his fields near the village of Oseberg, strikes something strange just beneath the earthwood, ancient and darkened by time. He doesn't yet know it, but he has touched one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in Viking history. The Oseberg ship lay buried for over 1,000 years, a grave not for warriors, but for women. The ship itself was once a vessel of the sea, carved with elegant precision. Over 70 feet long, curved like a crescent moon. Its prow, shaped like a serpent's head, curled upward toward the sky. Every inch bore the marks of craftsmanship: wooden rivets, carved posts, and iron nails rusted to powder. But this ship was not sailing anymore. It had been placed in a grave. Inside the burial mound were the remains of 2 women. We do not know their names, but their resting place speaks volumes. They were interred with lavish offerings: textiles, furniture, sledges, kitchen tools, even intricately carved animal head posts. The burial was not for the poor. This was wealth, status, ceremony. And yet, the mystery remains. Who were they? Some believe the elder of the 2 may have been a queen or, at least, a high-ranking noble woman. Others suggest she was a Valva Norse seeress, perhaps revered and feared in equal measure. Her presence in myth and memory lingers at the edge of fact and legend. The second woman was younger and may have been her servant, or her companion. Her bones tell of a harder lifespan, curved, perhaps from years of labor. The ship was buried around the year 834 CE, soil packed tightly around the timbers. Over time, the weight of the earth protected it, preserved it, held it in stillness. When archaeologists uncovered the mound, they worked slowly, methodically. They cataloged the contents: woven tapestries, wooden carts, even remnants of silk. Some of the objects bore Eastern patterns, hinting at long-distance trade, at far-off connections that stretched deep into Asia. Others were purely Norse, utilitarian, beautiful in their simplicity. Perhaps the most haunting find was not what they uncovered, but what had been taken. Much of the burial had been looted in the distant past, possibly just a few years after the entombment. Precious metals, jewelry, weapons, all gone. What was left behind, however, was still more than enough to tell a story of belief. The Norse did not separate death from life as we do. To be buried with a ship was not merely a display of wealth, it was preparation for the journey beyond. In their worldview, the dead did not rest. They traveled, crossed rivers of the underworld, through forests of mist, toward halls of ancestors or shadowy afterlives, depending on how they had lived. The Oseberg women, then, were voyagers in both life and death. Today, the ship is preserved in a museum, kept in a cool, quiet hall. Lit gently from above, visitors speak in hushed tones. The air carries a reverent stillness. If you ever visit, you'll notice that time moves differently there. As if the long ship still waits, not to sail again, but simply to be remembered. And in that stillness, under that gentle light, history breathes, softly, unseen, but ever present. Let us drift now, away from the hard soil of Norway, and on to the creaking timbers of a longship. The air is damp with sea spray. The sky stretches gray and endless overhead. You are no longer a farmer. You are a sailor now, a dreamer. a settler of distant lands. Imagine yourself beside Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red. He stands at the helm of his ship, his hands calloused from rope and oar, his face unreadable beneath the bristle of his beard. The sea rolls gently beneath the boat, calm for now, but always unpredictable. The sails flap in the cold Atlantic wind. Leif was born in Iceland, or perhaps Greenland. Sources differ. What matters is that he carried within him the same restless spark as his father, a man exiled for violence and driven across oceans to claim a land no one had yet named. Leif's journey, his so-called American dream, was not one of conquest, but of curiosity and perhaps hope. He had heard tales spoken in firelit halls of a land beyond the Greenland coast, a place of flat stones, dense forests, and wild grapes, a land where wood was plentiful and winters not quite so cruel. This land they would call Vinland. It was around the year 1000 CE, we think, when Leif set sail. His ship carried perhaps 30, maybe 35 men. Supplies, livestock, tools, and above all, trust in the ocean. There were no maps, no guarantees, just stars, experience, and the shape of the coastlines in the memory of those who had sailed before. The voyage may have taken weeks, perhaps longer, but they reached land eventually, a place unlike Greenland. The grass was softer, the trees taller, there was fresh water and fish and wild game. For a moment, it must have seemed like a kind of paradise. They built small shelters from timber, they hunted. They gathered berries and grapes and called the place Vinland, the land of wine. It was not wine as we know it, but the word carried promise. It meant abundance. It meant potential. But the Norse settlers would not stay for long. The sagas, those half-historical, half-poetic accounts passed down through generations, tell of tensions, harsh winters, isolation, perhaps even conflict with the people already living there. The Skrælings, as the Norse called them, likely indigenous peoples who did not welcome foreign ships or strangers in the forest. The settlement was abandoned within a few years, maybe a decade, maybe less. No lasting colony was formed. No cities, no flags, no empires, just the memory of a land glimpsed across the waves. And yet, for centuries, Leif Erikson's name remained etched into Icelandic memory, not as a conqueror, but as a traveler, a man who stood on the edge of the world and stepped forward. Today, archaeologists believe they have found the remnants of that brief Norse presence in North America, a site called El Anso Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. Their turf outlines mark the footprint of long-vanished halls. Iron rivets lie buried in the peat, quiet evidence of a voyage long ago. In this way, Leif's American dream lives on, not in cities or conquest, but in the calm silence of ruins. The gentle curve of the shoreline, a whisper of a sail catching wind on an open sea. Imagine yourself waking before dawn in a low, smoky house made of turf and timber. The hearth has gone cold in the night. You can see your breath in the dark. Around you, the others still sleep, your wife, your children, even the small, shaggy dog curled at the foot of the bedding. But you must rise. The goats have broken out again. You pull on your woolen tunic, heavy and scratchy. The firewood has frosted over, and your hands ache as you fumble with the flint. A few sparks catch. The flames are reluctant. Outside, the wind groans across the fjord. Life here is not what the skalds sing about. You are not a raider, nor a hero. You are a tenant farmer, Carl, scratching out a life on rented land under the watchful eye of a local chieftain. The soil is thin, the growing season shorter than your beard, and winter is never far away. The days are a slow rhythm of chores. You haul water from the frozen stream, each trip numbing your fingers to the bone. You chip ice from the buckets, then bring feed to the animals. The cows blink at you, their breath steaming in the dim barn. One is limping again. Another hasn't given milk in days. You step outside again. The snow is no longer fresh, has been trampled into gritty gray crust. You check the fish traps, though it is late in the season. Some days, there is nothing. Other days, a few thin eels. Your wife is inside spinning wool, her hands moving with practiced quiet. The spindle never stops. Your eldest son tends the fire. The younger ones whittle, or bicker, or sleep in corners. No one is idle, but nothing moves quickly. You remember last season's barley harvest? Was better than the one before, but the thatch on the roof still leaks. And you couldn't afford to keep all your livestock fed through the winter. You had to trade your last bronze brooch for salt. You missed that brooch. It was your mother's. And now, there are rumors of early frost. Again? Some days, you wonder what it would be like to leave, to follow the younger men to sea, to seek your fortune in Ireland or Francia. But you have responsibilities. The fields, the animals, the children, the hearth. At night, your muscles hum with fatigue. Your body remembers every motion, lifting, carrying, mending. You lie down on the straw-stuffed mat beside your family. The smoke clings to the thatch above you. The wind slips through the cracks. You pull a coarse blanket over your shoulders, and tomorrow it will begin again. Outside, the snow continues to fall in silence. The rhythm of your life is slow, relentless, unyielding. But in this rhythm, there is also a strange kind of peace, a quiet persistence, a life lived as so many did before the world changed. Welcome to Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, we invite you to rest, as we gently drift through the lives and legends of the Norse world. But unlike the stories you may have heard, horned helmets, blood-soaked raids, and roaring feasts, this journey will take us somewhere quieter, colder, and harder. We'll begin far from the battlefield, on a humble patch of soil in what is now rural Norway, where a Viking farmer, wrapped in wool and worry, greets the day with aching limbs and frozen fingers. His life is one of repetition, of constant labor, and of waiting for the sky to grant mercy. Later, we'll follow the real voyage of Leif Erikson across the sea into the unknown, and uncover what dreams drew the Norse to the edges of the world. We'll then lower ourselves into the soil beside a buried ship, ancient and still, and explore the mysteries it holds. And finally, we'll step quietly into the great hall of a chieftain, where poetry, politics, and roasted meat warmed the long winter nights. But for now, close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your thoughts slow with the rhythm of time, and imagine yourself on the edge of the world, where the days are short, the winters are long, and the earth is stingy with warmth. Let us begin.